Hi, therapy issuers. Thank you for joining in on our conversation between licensed mental health professionals. This is not meant to substitute a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Should you become triggered or begin experiencing a mental health crisis, please go to your nearest mental health hospital, emergency room, or dial 911 or 988. And always remember, we are human first and therapist second. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube channel using the handle @Crave Counseling. This is Therapy-ish. Hi, therapy issuers. Thank you again for joining us for another episode. And today what we're going to talk a little bit about is race-based trauma and how it impacts us in the healthcare industry. And I have Amber A.J. Jones here with us, and she is going to tell us a little bit about herself. She's going to let us know where her private practice is and the population she serves.
Yes, thank you for having me. So I'm actually not from Texas. I'm from Alabama, which is probably the worst state in the 50. I think they're pretty far back in the like 900s, something like that. But yeah, I'm from Mobile, Alabama. I moved here back in 2011 after I finished undergrad at some point. And yeah, I didn't know that I was going to do counseling, but eventually I realized that was my thing that I was going to do. And my private practice is mostly online, but I do go to the county jail at times to see clients there. But my private practice is Sappho Sessions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Okay. But do you mostly service people in Texas and other states, or just Texas?
Just Texas. Yeah,
okay,
I'm only
perfect.
licensed in Texas.
I know like everybody's moving towards the multi-licensure compact.
We need the compact. That's what we need.
I was down last week advocating for that at the Senate and House down at the state capitol. They had advocacy days. They have another advocacy day coming up, I think May 9th.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have to show up at the next
absolutely. I can forward that to you. All right. So what is race-based trauma? Like, I think we have an idea of what that is, but like, what is it?
Race-based trauma is and it's also called race-based traumatic stress or race-based traumatic stress disorder. So it's the traumatic response to a racial encounter that's either direct or indirect. So anywhere from you experiencing the event yourself to, we're in a social media era, to seeing it online or witness it on the news or something like that and having that traumatic response to it. And so it's very similar to PTSD in terms of how the stress interacts with our mental health and everything.
Okay. All right. So, and this is on the side, but would you say like the average minority person, like at what's the average age most people have their first experience with it?
I would like to think that it would most likely happen in like high school, college sometime. But I have an 8-year-old who has already, had a couple of experiences at his school now. So maybe it's younger than I thought. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'd like to go all the way down to newborns.
Yeah?
In my opinion.
Okay.
The reason I say that is because, one, we know, of course, the infant mortality rates and how Black women are their rates are disproportionately higher.
Right.
But when they have infants in hospitals, I think that there was research done on how the nurses interact between the different races of babies, and how they interpret some of the behaviors of minority newborns.
Interesting.
There's research on that. But aside from that, from like a psychological perspective, remember the research they did with the dolls?
Yes.
Or the infants, when they were asking the 8-year-olds or the 5 or 6-year-old kids, like which baby is
like bad?
Is bad versus good. And all of the Black babies were like titled as bad. And I want to say that those babies were like 1 and 2.
So I didn't see the one with the babies, but I did see the one with the kids that were, I
Like
guess they
in
were around like,
elementary?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Man, so you think that that is a direct response from race or like just their experience with racism? Because I would say that that would be more conditioning, but at the same time, that's racist conditioning. So maybe you might be right.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. Because I was about to say, but you know what? Somebody will argue me down that everything I just said was a lie, right? And that's okay. That's okay. My experience won't be the same as the other person's.
Right.
Also, what I read, you might not come across it, or you will come across it, but you still may interpret it as conditioning, right?
Right.
You may believe that, because you're right. Like textbooks, like medical professionals up until like a couple of years ago, or even just this year, something like that, they started to take out the language that Black people experience pain, higher pain, tolerance of pain.
Yeah.
And our on the pain scale spectrum, you know how they
Yeah.
ask you on a scale of 1 to 10. If we say 10, they rate it at like a 4 or 5.
Right. Right.
So when you talk about it, it's like it's a variation of both, because I've been
Yeah.
taught that your pain tolerance is higher, therefore I'm going to treat you as such. When in actuality, you're screaming for help, and I'm going to treat you as such because I've been conditioned that this race-based scale or what's been taught to me in textbooks are accurate for you. I think it just depends.
I think you're right. Because conditioning has to be.
You have to challenge
racism.
And because if you don't challenge it, you're accepting it. Like, right? They say not speaking up is agreement or acceptance of.
It is.
So
it is. Unfortunately.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I was just curious. So how does race-based trauma impact someone's mental health?
I guess similar to what I was saying before, in terms of it has the same responses as like PTSD. So you have people who are a lot more hypervigilant or worried, nervous, anxious, experiencing some depression, having triggers that they didn't think that they had before. And I think this is very it's very common, especially with minorities, because of when we see racism everywhere. You ever have Black people go into an area, and then in that area they only see white people, and then they see that one other Black person, and you give them you already know, you give them the head nod, where it's just like, all right, at least I see something.
You safe by me. We might not like each other, but you safe by me for now.
Right. I see another person. But if you don't see that person, and then you're in there by yourself, it's just like, okay, what am I going to experience? Is this going to be a safe environment? Do I need to do whatever I need to do and get out of here quickly? That comes most likely from some type of race-based traumatic situation that you've had before.
So would you consider microaggressions as a type of race-based trauma?
Yes.
Okay.
Simply put.
Okay. Understood. Okay. How do people... HR... Never mind. I'm going to leave it alone. So... How do people identify race-based trauma, especially when microaggressions, again, are sometimes hard to identify or hard to write out? Like, you know how when you go to HR and they say, well, write out what happened. And you're like, I can't really write it out. It's a feeling, like it's an experience. It's a moment that doesn't have tangible details.
I think that microaggressions are hard, right? Because that's the thing that happens the most. Because people aren't always, burning crosses and throwing them in your yard, calling you the N-word, all those types of things. But microaggressions are like more of an everyday thing. But I would break the question down into two parts. So the first part, in terms of, how do they recognize the microaggressions? Sometimes that's hard to do. That comes with education. It comes with experience. The second part, about writing it out, also very hard to do. But I think we have to try to take some of their words that they would use. If something like that were to happen to me, man, I think that her hair looks unkept. Okay, how would I write that out? Okay, somebody said to me that my hair looks unkept. And now they look at this and be like, okay, so just do your hair. Or it's like, no, that's not what it is. So I think I would have to take some words that the majority population would probably use and try to write that out. So I may say something like, I was told that my hair didn't look appropriate. However, such and such hair looks like this, and we have very similar hairstyles. So I would like to know what is wrong with mine versus theirs. So kind of make it a
That's
thing.
hard to do, right?
I think that is hard to do.
Because human resources is going to say, we talking about you. We're not talking about nobody else.
Well, what we're talking about is an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're talking about that person.
And feelings.
Yes.
And feelings. And there's no room for feelings in any type of complaint. What are the facts? That's why microaggressions are... I don't know.
I think there are
what
little
are the rules?
bit.
Tell me.
No, not necessarily rules, but I think there are some feelings, because it's like when you tell somebody, "Oh, you're just being sensitive." Everybody's sensitive about something. Mm-hmm. So to be able to try to monopolize that and be like, okay, well, I'm saying that you're being sensitive is a bit much. So I think feelings can come into play. I do think you're right in terms of facts. They want to know, all right, by the book, how can I do this situation? Mm-hmm. But I think we're in an age now, we're seeing that we can't keep doing things by the book. Like, we got to do something different. But if I'm able to say that's this person's opinion of me and no one else, now you have to look at that.
This is fair. Or their response to me is this way in comparison to other people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel like, and I hear you say we have to change the narrative or how we interact or engage with certain things. But when it comes to like society, mm-hmm. and like going back on the statement of like I said, they want to know facts. Right. The facts don't even matter at this point.
Oh yeah.
Especially when, you're dying astronomically in comparison to other races. Mm-hmm. The facts don't matter because nothing has changed. And so the feelings are the things, you're right, that are going to have to create the uproar to mm-hmm. shift the change. Mm-hmm. You have to have enough angry people and enough hurt people, because of course anger is a secondary emotion, yes, to be the ones to create the change or force the change.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's just a frustrating thing because one of the things you said is like, the facts don't matter anymore. And that's a hurtful truth, mm-hmm. a scary truth. Because what else do you need? Like, how do they solve crimes? How do we do all these other, we need fact-based information, but you're right, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what the facts are. Just, the fact is that you look like this and your facts don't matter. Your facts don't matter.
I think that's an even better way of wording it.
We know what the facts are, but your facts don't matter in this case. That's whatever true. The case is, whether it's in the hospital, whether it's, in the juvenile justice system, whether it's in the school system, whether it's going into the corner store and you're just buying groceries. Mm-hmm. The fact is I'm just buying groceries. So why are you following me around the store?
Because you might steal something.
But though, my facts of that I got the money in my purse don't matter to you because
right.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
You haven't seen me go to the counter and pay for the things. So mm-hmm. as of right now, my facts don't matter.
That's why I'm so against code switching now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so...
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
Well, it doesn't matter. You're right. But also, too, if I'm going to endure pain or endure something, mm-hmm. I want you to know I did that. Like, I'm not going to, like 50 Cent said, yeah, I did that. I ain't going to say the other part of it. But he, right. He always be like, yeah, he did that. Yeah, I did that.
I did
that. And I want you to know that, yeah, I did it. I said it with the exact tone you see me use every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. So why is race and culture important when choosing a provider?
That's a good question. I got that question when I recently had a talk at Texas State from some of the students there. It's important because I think Mama D said this one time. It's like, what's understood don't need to be explained.
Absolutely.
And I think that sums it up right there. Because there is an unspoken thing. There is a reason when I walk into a room where I'm the minority and I see another minority where it's just like, we're good. Like you said, you're mm-hmm. safe by me. Because it's a understood, like there are things that you get that I can't say to another person because mm-hmm. they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that I get who are like, man, I'm so glad I finally found a Black therapist because my other therapist, and it's not always bad.
Right.
But it's just things that they're like, I don't have to explain this to you
I'm
because you
not
get it.
teaching you.
I'm not teaching you. And that burden shouldn't be on the client.
Yeah.
Or Black people in general.
But we saw that when George Floyd became a thing, right? Remember all those organizations were like, we need DEI and we want Black companies, Black organizations, Black individuals. We want the Black voice from within the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, we already tired. We're tired, one, from being Black. Depending on your sex and the struggles that you have, you're tired of that.
Right.
Depending on your orientation, you're tired of that. They're like, listen, I can't wake up and not be tired. I keep it moving because I have to. But I don't get to just lay down and decide I'm not going to build whatever because my success, my community, the community that I serve depends on my success. And I have no choice.
That's real. That's very real. And that's
in any space that you're in, especially if you're passionate about it.
That is very real. I think as a small aside to that, I was trying to explain to my kids when it was time to go and vote very recently, and it was raining outside on the day we went. And we're standing outside this school, and they're just like, look, I'm ready to go home. I'm hungry. It's raining out here. I was like, I get what you're feeling. I was like, you have to understand why we have to do this. The people who came before us, who like this was nothing to, like there's a respect that you have to pay to all the people, in my opinion anyway, that came before us who didn't get the chance to do what we're doing. And now we're still tired, the same as they were.
On top of who lost their lives.
Trying to get to where we're trying to get to. And we have a little bit of a leg up because of them. So understand the moment that you're in, the privilege, not in that sense, that you have to be able to do this. So, trying to get another generation to understand, like, yes, we're tired. We don't want to do these things, but we have to keep going because so many other people have made it to where I get to talk about mental health. To my grandmother, she doesn't know anything about mental health. Listen, she does, but she doesn't. Like, she's felt these things. I'm not going to
engage with it. Like, I know it exists. I know it's a thing. Right. I'm not going to admit it, and I'm not going to engage.
Right. But I mean, she had bigger things in her mind, which was like, man, I can't even have a bank account with my name on it. But I have one easily, right?
I can't buy no land. I can't walk in a store without a husband.
You understand? So these types of things, it's like you have to understand, like, we're tired at this point, but you got to see all the things that have happened, which is I'm trying to get them to understand. But at this point, like you said, being able to just like lay down and like, not that we can't take breaks. I definitely want us to do that. But there's a difference and you have to be able to push forward. And that sucks.
Oh, yeah.
That sucks.
Absolutely. Tired. Yeah. And then don't let you be the strong friend of the group who's already the tired group, right? it's
Check on your strong friends, as they say now.
So race and culture. So you said, just there's a level of understanding that doesn't have to be there, and we don't have to teach it. We don't have to go back. So I like to use the word challenging.
Okay.
Right? So as clinicians, a lot of the clients that we usually get in the field that have had clinicians of other races, they usually come and be like, they wasn't going deep. They act like they were scared. Yeah. And that's normal for us. Like, confrontation is normal because we've had to learn how to do it. We've had to learn how to speak up, advocate. And we've also been taught to naturally pick up on when someone's hurt.
Right.
Because we are taught from ye on up that we have to self-sacrifice.
Especially as women, yeah.
Yes. And so, when you say race and culture and a provider, you're right. It's all in conjunction. It's like, I don't have to teach the nuances. I don't have to teach that this microaggression was a real thing.
Right.
I don't have to challenge or withhold how I feel in society because I'm being serviced by someone who doesn't look like me.
I would even take it a step further and say some of this happens between clinicians.
Absolutely.
Because I remember in the not so distant past when I was, I guess it's an associate now. But it was intern before. I ain't gonna call nobody out. But I had my supervisor was a white lady, and just the things that she would say to me. And it's like, how are you serving clients thinking it's okay to talk like this to somebody? Just like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm going to charge you this amount, to be your supervisor, but I do have another white girl coming on, and I'm just struggling with how much I should charge her versus you. I'm probably going to charge her more. Why would you say that to me? Like, what do you, why would you have no idea I could be rich?
My grandparents could be rich.
Yeah,
You
I could
don't know
come from
what
money.
you don't know what I got going on.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
And so having those are also nuances as well, where it's just like, this wouldn't even be a conversation if I had a black supervisor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, apparently that was before the George Floyd riots and the language that was being used, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're seeing organizations that put on their websites that they have BIPOC scholarships and that they have reduced rates for people of color. So the conversation, and like, it's nothing wrong with that, right?
No.
I don't want to make it a bad thing.
No.
But you're now seeing, like, I understand what she was saying, but the delivery wasn't the greatest.
Yeah, she said a lot of stuff, but yeah.
Well, yeah, we just gonna use that one example. We're gonna use that one example.
Yeah.
But for the sake of like the positives of it, right?
Right.
I think that we're starting to see that people understand the sensitivity in the word choice.
Yes.
Right. And so now you're just seeing it on people's website, like, and they're holding it true. Like, hey, if you're BIPOC, we're going to offer these things to you because we know you're underserved. We know you're underrepresented, and we might not be the best provider, but we going to do what we can in the process.
Right. And I agree. I think that message can be delivered appropriately.
Absolutely.
It was not in that instance, but I think for sure.
But again, I understand when intern was a thing, because I was once an intern versus associate. And so again, that was before the DEI initiatives were like the it word.
Right.
And so I can understand. Now, I don't know if that person's using that same language or if they still speak that way behind closed doors. But again, as we see communities change, it's forcing people to change the language that they're using to be something that's less abrasive and less harmful.
Agreed.
But yeah, race and culture is very important. It doesn't matter what industry you're in.
No, it doesn't. No.
But in healthcare, it's specifically important because I don't know that if I tell you something that you're going to misdiagnose me because of my race.
Yes, I have seen that. So
I get a lot of it. And I'm like calling doctors in between clients, like, hey, let's talk about
you calling them up.
Yeah, like you're supposed to do consultations with because my thing is, if I'm seeing something and that's the diagnosis they came in with and you're giving them medication, let's talk about it. Okay, what is the medication really supposed to support them with? Is it supposed to support them with the thoughts that they keep having here in therapy? Or is it supposed to support them with reducing the intensity of something? Like, why are they given this? What assessments were done? How do you know that they have bipolar disorder? How do you know that they have oppositional defiant disorder? Like, what did you actually pull out the DSM and look at it before you laid this down? Because we got a DSM like almost it's on our drive, and we got one in the front, one in the back, and we use it heavily.
Right.
And so what I go through as a Black person shows up in how I present in the healthcare industry. So that is very, very major for people.
Yeah, I think that's harder for some clinicians to see, because it's one thing to take a training about, multicultural diagnosing, but so much of who we are as clinicians is a reflection on who we are as people.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have any Black friends, any Hispanic friends, friends of any other, background.
Or submerge yourself in the culture.
Right.
You ain't got to necessarily have friends, but, we might not want you at the cookout, but if you get an invitation, go. Go. Are you taking the opportunities that come your way? I
agree with that. On the lighter side, listen, Black, we got to stop inviting everybody to these cookouts. We can't keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave that alone. I don't, it's not necessarily an issue with it. I just think that appropriation, what is an appropriate cookout to invite someone to?
Correct.
How, like, is this a sacred experience, right? Like, I'm not going to invite a certain person or a certain thing, situation to an HBCU event where we are doing certain things, right? Because those moments are sacred. Like pivoteers. Remember when the whole pivoteer thing came up? I forgot the university. And Black people was so mad because that is that is a safe thing that is the thing that we own. Yes. We have it. I don't even know if that's trademarked, but anyway, I don't know if you could trademark pivoteers. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know. Like, I know it's a profession because clearly people get scholarships to go do it at HBCU specifically. Yes, it's an experience. It's a moment. Like, but anyway,
so we need to watch what we inviting to.
It depends. Yeah. Right? Like, it depends on what it is. Like, if it's a sacred moment, I may be okay with it. Right. But my Black brothers and sisters, or my Hispanic brothers and sisters, or my Asian Hispanic Asian brothers and sisters may not be okay with this particular event. Right. They can come, but this one, not this one. Yeah. I'm with that. And so when you do things like that, you have to make sure that you're not saying, oh, like, I'm inviting this person, which is okay, right? But I don't want to take away from everybody else's safety. Yes. I feel safe with this person, this culture, this community. They've invited me places, and so I'm okay with reciprocating. But the people around me may have more trauma that they need to work through that they don't feel comfortable with having that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I know that was aside from healthcare, right? Yeah. Okay. How can clients advocate for themselves in these spaces, in these medical spaces?
So I work in a medical space within the jail. Okay. People will always tell you, like, that is it's closely related to a hospital environment. Yeah. And so there, I get to see firsthand how hard it is for people to advocate. And I think it's because, I'll say people like me in those positions where we're trying to serve this community, we already have an idea of who you are.
Because we have your file.
We have your file. You came into jail. You did it. All right.
Or didn't?
No, I'm saying that's what they're thinking.
Oh, okay. I'm like, or didn't? No. I was like, wait
a minute. No, they think, you did it. You're here because you did something wrong. Even if you didn't did it, you were around somebody who you still shouldn't have done it. So they have all these preconceived notions of who you are, what your life has been, and why you're in this space in front of me right now. So when a person comes in and they're like, upset, which I've never been to jail other than working there. Yeah. But I'm going to be upset if I get arrested and go to jail.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be angry. I might be crying. My cry might be a little bit more hysterical than what your cry looks like. So a clinician might say, all right, well, it sounds like you need some severe mental health services. I don't think you need to go be in general population with everybody else. You need medication. You're talking while you're crying. Sounds like you're talking to yourself. Like, and this happens. This happens a lot.
That's fun. And I don't know what to say. I was about to say that's funny, but then I was about to say that's crazy, and both of those words are just not appropriate for that statement.
But in those situations, people will say, no, I've never taken medication before. Right. I'm fine. I'm just upset right now. And they're like, no. I've seen this before because I've done this, and that. And so then that clinician goes to write their note. They say everything. But this person still gets to see a doctor. Absolutely. Who's the person who's going to prescribe that medication? If they're still upset, that doctor's going to be like,
we're going to force it.
We're forcing it. And if you act too wild in a jail, we can get an involved.
Solitary.
You don't want to do that. Yeah. I think in those spaces, and you have a great question of how can they do it. It's not that they're not. Yeah. They are telling us, I don't need that, or I do need this. It's based on whether that person believes them or not. Yeah. It's based on that person's education, that person's experience, that person's training. So it's not even, they can do it. They are doing it. They've been doing it. We've been doing it.
Absolutely.
for years, decades, whatever the case may be. So it's not even on, I don't even think that burden needs to be on how we do it. I mean, of course, you can say, well, you need to make sure your doctor is documenting this or that.
Mm-hmm.
That happens. But it's more about, are these people going to listen?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, like, educating
Yes.
is key, right? So I may not want that medication. I may not agree with your beliefs on what you about to do to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm big on challenging people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to challenge you by making you educate me. So you're going to give me this medication. How is it going to help me?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to give it to me. What is it going to change for me? Oh, well, it's going to make you feel better. Okay. Describe that. How does that impact my serotonin levels? How does that impact? Like, tell me why you're giving it to me.
Oh, that's clinical talk. You talking about serotonin levels? These
Yeah.
people don't
now,
know that all the time.
They're not going to know that part
Yeah.
of it, but they can easily just say, why are you giving it to me?
Mm-hmm.
And most, because we've all had race-based related traumatic experiences in healthcare, dependent whether it was the dentist office, wherever you was,
For sure.
right? And so when people are doing things to you, you err on the side of they know what they're doing, which I'm not saying that they don't.
Well, yeah.
Right. You
Gotcha.
err on the, because even me, I could be harming you and I not realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, even though we look alike
Right.
or whatever. So challenging. Why are you giving me that? What is that going to do for me? How is that going to help me? Right now, this is how I feel. This is what I'm dealing with. I don't want to be a zombie.
Yes.
I know I don't want to be upset anymore.
Mm-hmm.
What are some alternatives to what you're giving me? So if the physician is saying, well, you're upset, you're riled up. Okay. I'm in agreement that I will take the medication in an hour if I still feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an hour?
I like that.
Although the physician might be like, I need to give it to you now because I'm not coming back. Listen, give me an hour. I promise you, I will take it if you give me an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, I'm not in a space where I can really understand what you're telling me.
I think you're right. And I think that would definitely work. Probably not in the environment that I was just talking about. Because they just, they don't care. They're like, you taking it now and that's that. But I like that approach a lot. And I think even in private practices, I think
Absolutely.
that could be used because some of the clients that I get, they're just like, yeah, they told me this was my diagnosis. And now I walk around telling everybody this is what I have, whether I present that way or not.
Absolutely. And I'm like, but it was situational when the stressor stopped.
Mm-hmm.
How have you been since the stressor? I've been good. Okay. So this picked back up yesterday when the next stressor came about that you couldn't handle, that you couldn't manage, that was beyond your control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Noted.
Right.
I need to call your physician.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
So, what are your thoughts on the DSM and the multicultural considerations? So have you seen the new DSM TR? Like, have you seen it?
I haven't seen the TR.
Okay. But you've seen the traditional?
Yes, I have.
What are your thoughts?
You know my thoughts on this. I will say, on a positive note, it has come a long way. Ish. It's come away. I ain't feeling it. I mean, short and sweet. I ain't feeling it.
What do you mean by has come a long way?
I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen, because when I was in grad school, we had to look at just all of the DSMs, right? And I think some of the language that they decided to put in there is different from like the first, second, or third one. I mean, the fourth one, fifth one, yeah. But I think the language that language wasn't even in there at all. So it's like, okay, it's great that we're getting the conversation started. But come on now.
Yeah.
There are things, I mean, it's obvious that these programs are starting to be very heavy on having cultural competence, being a multicultural counselor, like having that competence. But then you want us to have this competence, but this is the book that we diagnose from. And those things don't match to me.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do a lot more. But what about the TR?
I mean, so the TR has it kind of highlighted.
Yeah. Okay.
So in the DSM 4 or 5, whatever, 5,
We're on
sorry.
5 now.
It has a paragraph, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all in unison, all the same color, all font, all same format. Well, in the TR, at least the digital copy that I have, it's like kind of, you know, when you're reading a textbook and they put like those informational boxes in there,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. And I think that the paragraphs might be smaller. And so in my mind, I'm like, it was an afterthought. That's one. Two, the issues that I have with it is that you cannot create a textbook and say we're going to add multicultural considerations and implications if there's no research to back it up.
Yes.
And I know that there's no research to back it up because there's just not. Because who was doing research on Black communities? Because universities coming into our neighborhoods, we're not talking to y'all.
Nope.
And even if we do, I don't know if the answers are going to be true.
Very true.
And then aside from that, it's just like we're new to this mental health space.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the symptoms and beliefs and ideologies that we deal with under even the zodiac sign, you know, like
yes, I'm so glad you said that.
It's not considered.
Nope.
Right? Because grandiosity, right? If I come in and I'm like, yeah, I'm better than everybody, I'm not experiencing grandiosity. I was taught that I needed to believe in myself so much so that I had to do it at this level of intensity in order to protect myself. So you just diagnosed me with some sort of grandiosity disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I am fighting my traumas. And that is a form of PTSD.
100%.
And I have learned that this is how I have to present in the world. And I am tired of doing it.
100%. I agree with that. I don't even have anything to say because I agree with that so much.
But again, it's the same for other cultures, right? Like
yes.
Asian communities show up a certain way, or their religious beliefs, their ideologies, all the things is not. I feel like there should be a book for every specific one.
I was just going to ask you, like, if you thought that, you thought that it should be one, because I definitely think so.
Like even we just did a presentation with ESPN, and we talked about at the the Black Sports Symposium in Atlanta, and we went over the grief cycle, but then we also went over the Black grief cycle. So when you go in the DSM and you see prolonged grief, none of the Black grief cycle is there. But you just added a new diagnosis, but you didn't include the Black grief cycle. Yeah, we do experience, or Black grief, right? We do experience traditional grief, but aside from traditional grief, there's a whole different cycle that we go through.
Yeah, and it's not going to look the same.
And it's not included in the textbook.
Yeah.
And again, the only reason I say I feel like there should be like separate books for each one is just because every culture is so distinct. Now, we can't create one for every single community, right? But we can
try.
Yeah, we can try. But in the United States, we can, based on us being able to get more research to be able to create this content. Because who's sitting on the board? Who's deciding? Who do and again, I'm not saying that they don't post the dates when they're starting to edit and review the DSM, but like we're not even privy to that information. Right. And we're in the field and we got to use this content. But all the contributors to the book, it's like 10, 12 pages of contributors, maybe even more. And it's just like, when did y'all even sign up to be able to be on this thing? But I'm going to leave that alone. Okay. But again, I only asked that question about the DSM is because we get so many clients that's misdiagnosed, and it's due to the lack of awareness based on a client's culture and their experiences and how they view the world. So how can clients provide cultural education and have open conversations with clinicians regarding what's in their charts and how a diagnosis was developed?
I think I will break that question down a little bit, because I think the first part of how can the, clients, give cultural education, that one's always hard for me, because I don't know that they should be doing that to the extent I'm thinking of anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that burden needs to be on them. I guess I said that a little bit earlier. I don't know if there need to be the person like, hey, this is how me as a Black person, da 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 da. That's a bit much on them, because it is your job to be culturally competent. And if you don't feel like you are, you shouldn't be taking on that client.
But that's hard.
It is hard.
That's very challenging because you and I both know that if somebody's coming in here with open heart failure and we gotta bust it open and we gotta perform open heart surgery,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the only one on staff. And of course, that's very extreme,
Right.
very extreme, right? But if I'm coming to you, clearly I'm in a place of desperation. So I'm going to
Yes.
trust that you will handle me with care, regardless of if you know my cultural background.
Agreed. And I'm not saying that any person who is not Black should only take
Yeah.
clients that look like them. That is not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm saying ethics requires us not to practice beyond our scope.
Absolutely.
And if something comes up where it's like, this is a little bit beyond, you need to be seeking supervision from someone or whatever the case may be. I don't think it is on the client to educate you on the unspoken things that you may not know all the time. So that would be the first part of it. I think what was the second part of the question?
Provide cultural education and have open conversations with clinicians regarding what's in their charts and how a diagnosis was developed.
I think that is a very important part that doesn't happen enough.
Which part?
About talking about diagnosis and how
what's in the chart?
Yes.
And how it can impact you.
Yes. You got some feelings on it?
Well, because mental health is considered a pre-existing medical condition, just like cancer, just like anything that is pre-existing.
Right.
So depending on where you are in life and what you're trying to do in the near future, it could impact you.
Right.
Such as going to the military, life insurance policies.
For sure.
Yeah.
All of those things. And I think that when we're having those conversations with clients, for one, it better educates them on what's going on with them so they can better articulate that to whatever party they need to articulate it to, which is why I think that part of therapy doesn't, like with the clinicians that I talk to anyway, that part doesn't happen enough. So I think that, clients, one, should feel comfortable enough to do that and confident enough. How do they do that part? Hopefully this is a very safe environment and you've had conversations with them about how this works as long as we have a good relationship. Part of a good relationship is communication. You feeling like you can come to me and ask questions about certain things. But clients advocating for that information is huge. Clinicians being comfortable enough to say, if you felt shaky diagnosing it, then the problem starts there because you need to be able to talk about this thing.
Absolutely. Because I will bust the book open in a minute in the middle of a session and be like, hold on. So you just asked me that. I gave you the first 3. I missed the other 2. I just wanted to make sure I got into that with you.
Yeah.
And I was trying to, at least for me, I do provide that psychoeducation piece and let them know, like, hey, you're using insurance. I have to give you a diagnosis. These are the ramifications of doing so. I don't mind doing it, but just note that this is this. Yeah. And then we're going to talk about how I came to that diagnosis. Now, sometimes I miss it because life be lifing in them sessions.
Right.
And so sometimes I miss it. But I always try to circle back when I see them, be like, oh yeah, forgot last time, this is what's in your chart. And even just teaching them, like, ask your physician for a copy of your records.
I'm always telling them that.
Bring your EOB to therapy and let's talk about it. Because those explanations of benefits are in there. And so on there, it usually has the diagnosis code listed. It usually has the procedural code. And then clients be like, well, what is this? I didn't sign this. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And you're like, okay.
Psychoeducation is so important.
I feel like that's a whole nother course.
Talk about it.
But I'm going to leave that alone.
Yes, it really is.
Okay. And I know we kind of broached this, so we don't have to go too deep in this, but what are some ways that clinicians can work towards becoming more racially and culturally aware?
I think it does start with education, but not just the trainings and stuff that they take.
Oh, I know. The implementation of it.
Right. It's the implementation of those things. But also, I want people to be aware of what trainings and stuff that they're taking. If you're taking a course on how to be more culturally competent or how to implement some of these things, is it smart to take these things from a person who maybe isn't part of a minority group? I'm not saying that these people aren't educated. I'm saying it depends on where you are in your journey of what you're trying to know and what you're trying to learn. Yeah. Because you're going to get even more probably from a person who's from those different communities. and who are the ones creating these trainings. But I see so many, so many trainings by people who are not minorities. And again, not that they're not educated, but it's kind of like you're going to school learning from a history book from people who won in history.
Absolutely.
And I don't necessarily want to know that history.
Yeah. I do think people can co-collaborate for sure, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can co-collaborate because there are some things that I'm not aware of some cultures, and there are things that I am.
100%.
So, and I know like this podcast, this particular episode, we're very like super Black in this conversation. Not that I'm not in any other ones, but this is like this is the deepest I've gone into like the Black experience, I guess, outside of like some of the previous seasons. Right. And so I always tell people I created the podcast so that people could be a fly on the wall. Because you know, I know at least with my consultation groups with other clinicians, they look like me because this is usually the population that I'm serving, right?
Right.
And so if you're not privy to a consultation group, or if you're not trying to get and become a part of some of these side conversations that we're having outside of the therapy space, then you're not privy to what's going on in the spaces that we're in.
Right.
And so you may be treating clients who are dealing with the same issues, but you may be approaching it differently. And it may be harmful, or it may not be giving you.
It's not giving what it needs to be given.
Yeah, it's not giving you what you need to get out of it so that you can really support the client like you need to.
Right.
And so, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I think that, you know, a huge part of it, like you said, is psychoeducation, right? Teaching, but also being a fly on the wall. Sometimes watch, listen, and learn.
Just observe.
Watch, listen, and learn. The information is going to flow. But as far as, you know, becoming more aware, also like submerge yourself into it. Like I said earlier, like go to some Black events. Listening to Black music is not the Black experience. But I'm gonna leave that alone. Because I don't believe in shooting people. I believe in I am my brother's keeper.
Right.
I don't believe in tearing other communities down. I believe in supporting everyone. Right. Now, the music doesn't say that about me. So if this is your only exposure to the Black culture, I'm going to tell you that is wrong. Now, some of that stuff we do be feeling like that. Now, are we going to act and engage on it? No, that's not my character. That's not who I am as a person. So if you got clients coming in here and your viewpoint of those clients are based on what you're exposed to, that is harmful to you and them.
And in addition, Black is not a monolith. No. So that music could be true for folks.
Some.
But not all of us.
The small, minute.
Right. So be okay. I mean, the music is fine. If you want to listen to it, that's cool. But understand that while that is somebody's experience, some people's experience, we're not all the same.
But it also may not be somebody's because the person that's creating the music, that's not always their experience.
No, everybody got a ghostwriter.
It's usually the
ghostwriter got a ghostwriter.
No. But it's you, like the person who's writing the music or who is the artist is usually like the lame in high school who would have never bust a grape. And we know that because that's the community that we're coming from.
Right.
Because the men that are really, really hard, usually they are hard by circumstances.
And they're not talking about it like that.
Yeah.
So
and it's like, okay, I did what I needed to do, but that's not who I am as a person. That was circumstantial. And that wasn't personal to nobody I harmed. I had to figure out how to get $1 million by tomorrow, and I did it.
Yeah, that was means to an end.
Yeah. So, all right, we're down to the last 2 questions. I know we definitely went over this episode, but that's okay. What are your thoughts on research in behavioral health regarding how race is taken into consideration when trainings and new psychotherapy methods are developed?
You trying to get me to talk? Why are you trying to do all that?
I know this conversation is going to maybe ruffle some feathers. I don't know.
It'll ruffle some. Okay, repeat the question one more time.
Okay. What are your thoughts on research in behavioral health regarding how race is taken into consideration when trainings and new psychotherapy methods are developed? So
I think there are 2 answers to it again.
Right.
I think on one side it's like some of y'all not taking race into consideration.
Absolutely.
You know? And then on the other side, it's like, but when you do, it's from a racist lens. And of course, that is harmful.
I
So
didn't even think of it like that.
yeah.
Okay, I got
So
you.
when you come from it from that lens, it's like, oh, I want to think about all these different races or backgrounds when I'm doing this research for, you know, this healthcare setting or whatever the case may be. You're thinking of it from what you said earlier was like, oh, Black people have a higher threshold.
Yeah.
So let's create this thing. And it's, but now you're so harmful in it. But it's become the standard.
Right.
And so now we're just subject to it, and we just think that that is the norm when it isn't. And so we're just now getting into these spaces where we're like, I mean, I know there's a lot of research behind this, but that ain't right.
That ain't it.
That ain't it.
This ain't it.
So I think those would be probably my two ways of looking at it. And I think that duality of things sucks so much as a Black person, where there are so many times where you have to second guess, did they do this the right way? Is this because I'm Black or I'm a minority and or is this really how things should go?
Yeah. I remember going to like an EMDR training. I was like one of 2 Black people in this training, which is traditional and typical of most spaces that we enter in this particular industry, at least right now.
Right.
And so I wasn't going deep, right, with the person, right? They were the clinician and I was the client.
Okay.
And it was okay for me not to go deep because clearly we're not training. That's not my therapist. And I was like, you know, I intentionally was not giving you anything because I wanted you to challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got into the conversation and she said, well, why did you want me to challenge you? I said, because if you're serving people of color, they're not going to be safe.
Right.
And so you're going to be trying to pull information out of them and they're going to be like, nope, everything's fine. You're going to operate with the idea that they are the strong Black woman that you see in front of them because that's what society has said to be true. Mm-hmm. When in actuality, I am dying to tell you everything that is going on, but I don't know that you're going to be able to handle that. And that part of the training, I wasn't even the trainer.
I was teaching.
And I wasn't trying to. I literally wasn't trying to.
But that was the appropriate time though.
Yes. And she was like, yeah. And because when we were going through the training, there was like another blurb. Multicultural considerations. And again, when you do multicultural considerations, you're not pointing out every single race. It's usually a blurb on like, be sure to pay attention to X, Y, and Z. But it's like, in this culture, you got to really pay attention to, are you challenging them to get what you need out of them to help them and serve them the way that they need to be served?
Is that on us as clinicians to help other clinicians
absolutely
do this? I think so too.
Yeah, because I can't serve everybody.
Right.
And if I trust that you are alongside of me and we are serving the similar clients, right? Yeah. I need you to know that like, no, you need to go deeper than that. Mm-hmm. You missing something. And I know that because I am her and she is me.
Right.
So I know that you didn't go deep enough because if I was in your seat, I'd have been dying on the inside because you didn't ask me the question I needed you to ask.
And now she's going home like, man, therapy don't even work.
It's not working. Literally, it is not working. And they were great. They were nice, but it's not working. Yeah. We get that all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. What are some resources for people who have experienced racial trauma at the hands of behavioral health providers?
And I don't want to ruffle feathers. I don't want it to sound too harsh. The first thing I would say is to, you know, as comfortable as you can in that session with that person, you can ask for some referrals if you feel comfortable doing that. There are a couple of us out there, clinicians like yourself, who, you know, have done the training, done the work, know the communities, not all obviously, but, you know, you've done the work in the different communities to be able to serve various different communities. So try to seek a counselor who has the things that you're looking for. A lot of people say a lot of nice things on their pages, but a lot of us can go in a little bit deeper and say, I work with this, and this. So if those things speak to you, try to find therapists that have those things. But the part about ruffling feathers, because I have seen it people who have come from clinicians where those clinicians have done a lot of harm. If you feel that it needs to go further, to report, do that. I've had to do that once with a client where it was really, really bad. And I'm like, that person, no, like they can't do that at all. Like that is harmful and in my opinion, just wrong. And so I helped them with the process of, because they said they wanted to report the person. So helping them with the process. If it needs to go that far,
Yeah.
do that. Like, be okay, because it's not so much of, I just want this person to lose their license. No, the board will also be like, you need to do some training.
Yeah.
You know, you need to do this or that. So I think those are a couple of the ways that I tell my clients, like, or people that I know who are looking for therapists,
Mhm.
here are some things to look for, or here's some questions to ask yourself when you're looking for a therapist who is going to fit what you need.
Yeah. Definitely lead with your problems, or lead with your trauma.
Yeah.
That's the better term. Lead with your trauma. Because if I know that you're calling me about trauma and that's not my specialty, I'm going to say, hey, let me find somebody for you.
Please.
Or if you're asking me to support you in this way, I'm going to say, I don't know that I can support you. I can help you with this part of it, but I'm going to need to get you some more support. And that's me even just being a clinician. And again, reporting is great. Racial related issues in psychotherapy services, harm is in the eye of the beholder. That's my favorite line. And so if the client is being harmed, it's not about whether or not it was your intention as a clinician. It is about whether or not the beholder felt harmed and whether or not the board considers it as harm. So it's equally as severe as a clinician having an inappropriate relationship with a client.
It is.
So if a clinician is having inappropriate racial interaction with you, do what you need to do. But also, if it's not that bad and you feel like, okay, I can empower them, I can teach them and let them know this is what hurt me.
I think you can let them know for sure.
Okay.
Have that conversation. Now, it's up to you if you want to continue with them or not, but definitely let them know. And in my experience, they generally just leave. And I've tried to say, hey, you know, if you feel comfortable, you can tell that person, because at the end of the day, they're going to see somebody else and this may happen again.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. So tell us where you are located again and your social media handles, if you have any.
I am in Pflugerville, so I typically do online sessions. Anyone I see in person is at the jail.
Okay.
So don't want to see you there, because that means
you did something wrong.
Something wrong, or somebody else did something wrong, something like that. I actually only have Facebook as of now.
Is it a business or personal?
No, it's business.
Okay.
No, it's Sappho Sessions on Facebook.
Spell that.
SAPPHO.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Sessions. So you go on Facebook, follow me there. I always post information about mental health and our community as a whole. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
This conversation was fun. It was fun. It was great. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.